Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
One introduction. For a very long time in history, India was known as a very rich place. It had much wealth. People in India produced many valuable goods like spices and beautiful textiles. They traded these goods with countries all over the world. This trade made India's economy strong and famous. But things changed when people from Britain came. The British started to rule India. This period was called British colonization. It lasted for around 200 years, from the 1700s to the 1900s. When British rule ended, India was very different. It was no longer one of the richest places on earth. In fact, it was among the poorest countries in the world. This was a huge and sad change for the people living in India. Many people ask, how did this big change happen? How did India lose so much of its wealth during the time it was ruled by Britain? This text will try to explain this complex history. It will talk about the economic situation in India during the time it was a British colony. The British made many changes to India's economy and society. They controlled trade and production for their own benefit. They took valuable resources from India and sent them to Britain. This process made Britain richer, but it greatly harmed India and its people. Many traditional Indian industries were destroyed. Farmers faced very hard lives because of new British rules. After getting independence in 1947, India started a new journey. It needed to build its economy again from a very low point. This book will also look at how India worked to become economically strong after British rule ended. It faced many difficult challenges, like widespread poverty and the need to feed a very large population. The new Indian government had to make important decisions about how to organize its economy for the future. It was a long process of building and changing the country. This text gives a neutral view of this important history. It tells the story of India's economic fall under British control. It also tells the story of India's efforts to rise again after becoming a free country. It is a look at important economic events and their impact on India's past. 2. Europeans arrive in India. Europeans really liked spices from Asia. Their own food did not have strong flavors like pepper or cinnamon. For thousands of years, they bought spices that came by land routes. These routes were very long and difficult. Spices passed through many hands from town to town, across mountains and deserts. Other groups, like the Ottoman Empire in the 15th century, controlled these main land routes from India to Europe. They made the taxes very high on spices. This made spices incredibly expensive when they finally arrived in Europe. Because spices were so costly, European countries wanted to find a new way to get them. Portugal, a country far from Asia, started looking for a sea route. Sailing across the open ocean was dangerous then, but Portuguese shipbuilders developed better ships called caravels. These ships could sail against the wind, allowing them to travel much further than before. Portugal began exploring the coast of Africa, slowly moving south. They set up small trading forts along the way. It took about 100 years of exploration. Finally, in the year 1498, a Portuguese sailor named Vasco da Gama found a way. He sailed all the way around Africa and reached a city called Calicut in India by sea. The first meeting was not easy, but later Portuguese ships were better prepared. Indian rulers eventually allowed Portuguese ships to trade in their ports. This new sea route meant the spice trade could grow again. The first ships that returned to Europe earned huge profits. This made more countries want to join the trade. Other European powers like Britain, France, and the Netherlands started sending their own ships to India and other parts of Asia. They did not try to take over the land right away. Their first goal was trade. They asked local Indian rulers for permission to set up small places called trading posts or factories near the coast. These were places to store goods and do business. They traded for spices, but also later for other valuable Indian goods like fine textiles and the blue color called indigo. In the year 1600, the British formed a big company called the East India Company. The British government gave this company a special right to be the only British group allowed to trade with India. This was a monopoly. The company's main goal was simple: to make money from trade and send profits back to Britain. They set up their own trading posts in different parts of India along the coast. French and Portuguese companies also had trading posts. At this time, the European presence in India was mostly about buying and selling. They were powerful traders, but they were not yet ruling the land. They just wanted to make a profit from the valuable goods found in India, which was a major center for trade. 3. A company rules India. India was home to the powerful Mughal Empire for many years. It was a large and rich empire. However, over time, the Mughal Empire became weaker. The emperors spent a lot of money fighting wars to expand the empire. Ruling such a big area was hard. People in different regions started to feel unhappy, and some rebelled against the central power. Other empires saw the weakness and attacked the Mughal lands. The empire began to break into smaller parts. The British East India Company was a trading company from Britain. They had trading posts in India. They saw that the Mughal Empire was losing its strength. The company saw this as a big chance. They decided to try and gain power in India, not just trade. The British company fought against the French company in India. The British won this fight, which made them stronger. Now the British company wanted more money and power. They found a way to get rich quickly by collecting taxes. They made agreements with some Indian rulers who were fighting among themselves. In exchange for help, the company got the right to collect taxes in fertile and rich areas like Bengal. Getting control of taxes was very important. Money is needed to run any government. The company now controlled the money in these areas. The company used some of the tax money to build a large and strong army. This army had British officers, but most of the soldiers were Indians hired by the company. This army grew to be very big, around 300,000 soldiers, while the company had only a few thousand British staff. With this army and the money from taxes, the company began to control more and more land in India. They made Indian rulers sign treaties that gave the company power over their lands or their armies. If a ruler did not want to sign a treaty, the company sometimes used its army to force them or take their land. The company also used a rule called doctrine of lapse. If an Indian ruler died without a direct male heir, The company would take over their state instead of letting a relative rule. Indian rulers slowly lost their real power. They had to follow the company's orders. The company became the real authority. Most of the large amounts of money collected from taxes were sent back to Britain. This money helped the company's owners get very rich. Little money was used to help the people or develop the areas ruled by the company. For example, the ruler of Hyderabad had to sign a treaty. He had to pay very high salaries to British officials. He also had to borrow money from the company itself at a very high interest rate, 24%. This debt meant the company had great control over him. So, step by step, the British East India Company changed. It started as a trading company, but used the weakening of the Mughal Empire to gain political and military power. By collecting taxes, building an army, and making deals, the company became the actual ruler over large parts of India. They ruled like a government, controlling land, people, and money. This was the start of a company ruling a country. 4. Hard times for Indians. The East India Company's main goal was to make money from India. They created a system that was very hard on the Indian people. The company made strict rules about taxes on land. Farmers had to pay these taxes regularly. A big change was that the company wanted taxes paid in cash money. Before, under Indian rulers, taxes were often a part of the crops grown. If the harvest was small, the tax was also small. But the company wanted cash no matter the harvest size. Most Indian farmers lived simply and did not have much cash. To get cash for taxes, they had to sell their crops. When many farmers had to sell at the same time, the price of crops went down. Farmers could not earn enough money to pay the high taxes the company demanded. If a farmer could not pay the tax, the company took their land. Many families lost the land they had farmed for generations. They became poor and had no home or way to make a living. Sometimes the company gave this land to wealthy British people or their Indian friends. These new landlords would then hire the very farmers who lost the land but paid them very little. Most of the wealth collected from India through taxes and trade was sent to Britain. It was profit for the company's owners and helped Britain grow. This money did not help India develop. India's own wealth was leaving the country all the time. The company also forced farmers to grow specific crops that Britain wanted. These were not food crops for Indians. For example, they were made to grow indigo for dye or opium for trade with China. Growing these crops took up land that could have been used for food. India was famous for its own industries. It produced high-quality textiles, cloth, made strong steel, and built good ships. The British wanted to stop these Indian industries. They wanted India to be a market for goods made in Britain. The company put very high taxes on Indian manufactured goods, like textiles. An Indian cloth maker had to pay a tax of 70 or 80% when selling their cloth. This made Indian cloth much more expensive than cloth made in Britain, so people bought British cloth. Indian businesses closed. The same happened to steel and shipbuilding. Laws were made to stop Indians from competing. India lost its ability to make many things. It became a country that mainly produced raw materials like cotton, which were sent to factories in Britain. Then finished goods from Britain were sold back to Indians. This system made Britain rich and kept India poor. Growing less food and taking away India's wealth and industries had terrible results. When the weather was bad and crops failed, there was not enough food for everyone. This led to terrible famines. Millions of Indian people died from hunger during these hard times under the East India Company's rule. This was a very sad period in India's history. 5. Britain rules India directly. A big event happened in India in the year 1857. Many Indians rebelled against the British East India Company. Over 800,000 Indians fought. The British won the fighting, but it showed them something important. The company could not rule India forever. So, the British government in Britain decided to take control itself. This happened in the year 1858. This new time was called the British Raj. The British government now ruled India directly, not the company, but the main goal stayed the same. The British still wanted to take wealth from India. They sent money and resources back to Britain. They did not use it to help most people in India. The British were worried about another big rebellion. India was a very large country with many people. The British used a plan called divide and conquer. They tried to make different groups in India fight each other. For example, they made problems between Hindus and Muslims. They also treated Indian princes and different social groups differently. This made it harder for Indians to unite against British rule. The British created a system to run the country called the Indian Civil Service. British people held almost all the important jobs in this service. Very few Indians had top positions. British people were paid more than Indians for the same work. The British also tried to change Indian culture and systems. They wanted Indians to be more like British people. They changed laws and stopped some old Indian ways of life. This period of direct rule lasted for many years. 6. Indians want more rights. Indians began to come together. They wanted to change British rule. A new group started in 1885. It was called the Indian National Congress. At first, this group did not ask for India to be a free country. They asked the British government for more rights for Indian people. They wanted Indians to have more power in the government. They wrote about their ideas in newspapers. They wanted to show the British government that Indian people were united and had important voices. But the British government did not listen to their requests. They ignored the Indian National Congress. The British officials in India mostly cared about making money for Britain. They did not care about the needs or wishes of the Indian people. They stopped Indian newspapers and put Indian leaders in prison for speaking out against their rule. After many years, Indians became very unhappy and frustrated. They saw that simply asking politely for changes did not work. The British continued to take wealth from India and control everything. People felt they needed a new, stronger way to get the British to pay attention. They decided to make it difficult for the British to earn money in India. They started asking people to stop buying goods from British shops and instead buy from Indian businesses. This was a new kind of protest based on nonviolence. The British were not used to this peaceful, yet effective way of showing resistance. It began to get the British government's attention in new ways. In 1915, a man named Mahatma Gandhi came back to India. He was an Indian lawyer who had studied in London and worked in South Africa. In South Africa, he successfully used non-violent methods against unfair laws. People in India saw him as a hero who knew how to stand up to the British Empire. Gandhi joined the Indian National Congress. He believed that all Indians, no matter their social class or religion, should unite and work together. He promoted peaceful protests and non-cooperation with the British government. He taught that if millions of Indians refused to obey unjust laws or work for the British system, the British could not maintain control. During World War I, from 1914 to 1918, over 1 million Indian soldiers fought for the British Empire in different parts of the world. The British government promised that after the war, India would be given more self-government, like countries such as Canada or Australia. This meant Indians would manage their own country more, while still being part of the British Empire. But after the war ended, the British government did not keep this important promise. This made many Indians feel betrayed and deeply angry. In 1919, a terrible and shocking event happened in the city of Amritsar. The British Army, under General Dyer, shot and killed many hundreds of unarmed Indian people who were gathered in a park for a traditional festival. Many people did not even know that a British order had forbidden large gatherings. This event, known as the Amritsar Massacre, angered people all over India more than ever before. It showed many Indians clearly that the British government did not value their lives or rights. After the massacre, more and more Indians joined the protests against British rule. The Indian National Congress became a much larger and stronger movement. Its main goal changed. They stopped asking politely for just more rights within the empire. Now they demanded full independence for India. The fight for freedom became much more determined and widespread. 7. India becomes free. After World War II finished, the leaders of the Indian National Congress were let out of prison. The British wanted to leave India. They decided to hold elections quickly. These elections showed a big difference between two main groups. Most Hindus voted for the Indian National Congress. Most Muslims voted for the Muslim League. The leader of the Muslim League, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, said that most Muslims wanted their own country, called Pakistan. But the Indian National Congress wanted India to stay as one country. This caused problems between Hindus and Muslims. People worried about living as a small group in a big country led by the other group. There was fighting in some places. Police and soldiers sometimes took sides. The British saw the problems and decided to leave India sooner. They thought maybe India would have trouble ruling itself. They started talking with the Indian leaders about how to give up power. These talks were hard. The Muslim League and the Indian National Congress did not agree on many things. The British set a date to leave, June 1948. Finally, they made an agreement. India and Pakistan would become two separate countries. They drew lines on the map to divide the land. This split areas where Hindus and Muslims lived side by side for many years. It meant millions of people had to move from their homes to be in the country where their religious group was the majority. This moving caused a lot of fighting and sadness. Around 1 million people died during this time. Pakistan was made in two parts, with India in the middle. There were also many small kingdoms in India. Their rulers had to decide if they wanted to join India or Pakistan. Most of them joined one of the new countries. On August 15, 1947, India became free. Pakistan also became a free country. The British flag came down and the new flags went up. Both countries said that people of all religions could live there freely. India and Pakistan also joined a group called the Commonwealth of Nations. This group includes countries that were once part of the British Empire. They work together on trade and other things. Later, some small areas in India that were ruled by France and Portugal also became part of India. This happened over time, with some areas joining peacefully and one, Goa, joining after a short fight in 1961. India was now its own country, but it faced many big problems. 8. Building modern India. When India became free in 1947, it faced huge problems. Many people were very poor, and there was a serious lack of food across the country. Millions of people did not have enough to eat each day. India also had very little modern industry or factories after the time under British rule, who had focused on taking raw materials. India is a very big land with many different languages, cultures, and groups of people. The new leaders had to work very hard to keep everyone united as one nation and build a shared feeling of being Indian. To build a strong and modern India, the government invested in big infrastructure projects like roads, large dams for water and power, and railway lines across the country. They also chose an economic system where the government controlled many big and important industries, such as making steel, transport, and energy production. Private businesses were allowed, but it was often hard for them to start or grow because they needed special permission or licenses, which took a long time. This government control often meant industries were not very efficient, and there was not much competition to make things better or cheaper. Because of these reasons, the economy grew slowly for many years after independence. India often needed money and help from other nations just to provide basic things for its large population. Over time, seeing other countries grow faster, India began to change its economic plan. Starting slowly and then faster after 1991, the government decided to open the economy more. They reduced some of the strict rules for businesses and made it easier for Indian companies to trade with the world. They also lowered taxes on goods coming from other countries. This helped Indian businesses get parts and technology they needed, making their own products cheaper and better. More private companies grew, and foreign businesses started investing in India. India also became very successful in service industries, like providing computer help, software, and business support to companies in other countries. This opening up helped the economy grow much faster. Today, India's economy is growing steadily at a good rate, and it is one of the largest in the world. This growth has helped many people move out of poverty and have better lives. India is now seen as a very important country in global trade and politics, but big challenges remain for the government and people. Improving education so more children can read well, providing good health care for everyone, making banks stronger, and ensuring all people benefit from the economic growth are still important goals. Despite these difficulties, Many people are hopeful that India will continue to develop and become a major world power in the coming years.